and then we were sitting in here and it's 10 degrees cooler, so we decided here is a lot better. Does it feel better in here? So I wrote a big thing on the board. Were you able to see that? Okay. Cool. All right. We were talking about the paper and asking about these. So like those are the last three: no physical contact, unwarranted, no sexual harassment, obviously, no derogatory language. It says social workers should not use derogatory language in their written, verbal, electronic communication. So that goes back to the client can see what you type about them. You can't write like this client is a piece of crap. You know what I mean? Like even if you think that, you don't want to put it in your notes, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? You could be working with even sex offenders if you're in that line of work, and you might have bad judgment and opinions, but we're still there to help. And if you don't want to do that type of work, go work at a different agency, if that makes sense. So we have a choice. Payment, that says that we could be paid with like chicken eggs and like we're not allowed to receive gifts. So these are the things you're writing about for the paper this week. This one's tricky though, because we were just saying you have to let the client make their own decision. So this one says when social workers can act on behalf of clients who lack the capacity, and this might be a kid too, social workers should take reasonable steps to safeguard their interests and rights. If it is a kid, like in foster care, they call you a guardian ad litem, and that's when you make decisions for them. Also, if you are not good at what you're doing, say that you don't work with sex offenders, but you get a sex offender that comes to you, you have to refer them out to other services. So we don't say like, no, you're a piece of crap, I don't want to work with you. You say, hey, here's somebody else who can help you. So we still try to pass people on, again, no matter what we think, because we might have opinions like, you're messed up, you abused that person, and I don't like you. We still have to try to get them help, and hopefully they get better. And then the last one is termination of services. So when we want to terminate services, we have to make sure to write notes about it. Trying to find you guys our PowerPoints. Here they are. Because we're already on chapter 5. That's crazy. I have to somehow email this to myself. If I can work. So are any of those making, oh, there's still a few more. So part 2 is your ethical responsibilities to colleagues. So number 1 is respect. And that's always the case. Should avoid unwarranted negative criticism of colleagues in verbal, written, and electronic communication. So same thing. You might think that, you might be pissed at your colleague, but don't write it. Because nowadays, every email you have, everything you type on social media, somebody's going to see it. You know what I mean? So you can think it up here, just don't even text it. Just don't put it in writing. Also, demeaning comments that refer to colleagues' level of competence to individuals. And that's because, like, if they're working with somebody, oh, that's weird. I'm confused. It said it deleted the PowerPoint, but let's fix that. If you're talking crap about them and there is a client that's actually getting work, like good work out of that social worker, you don't want to ruin that relationship with their social worker, because some social workers, different social workers, work better with different clients. And you guys might not see eye to eye and you're like, I hate you and you're a piece of crap, but it's better left unsaid, because then like the client can hear it and they might be less accepting of working with that social worker. So that's where, again, like not saying those things out loud. We can think them, but you don't have to write it. If it's something that they're doing that's illegal or unethical, you do have to say something. But if it's just like our opinion, like, I don't like that they do this with clients, let's see here. So any questions about those? Okay. interdisciplinary collaboration. So again, if you work with people in addiction recovery, you get a sex offender that comes to you, you want the person who has a sex offense to get help. So you refer them to a social worker that specializes in working with sex offenders. So we try to be interdisciplinary and like um, pass them on to folks. There's also disputes with colleagues, so don't take advantage of a dispute between a colleague and an employer to obtain a position or otherwise advance the social worker's own interests. That's a tricky one too. It says should not exploit clients in disputes with colleagues or engage in clients. Any inappropriate discussion of conflicts between social workers and their colleagues. So again, if a social worker has a client and they hate that social worker, no need to feed that energy. You know what I mean? You can maybe like affirm them like, yeah, I'm sorry that sounds hard. Hopefully you can get the help you need, but don't like feed into it. Like, even if you think they're a bad social worker, like, yeah, they're kind of a piece of crap. Like it doesn't help. So again, just trying to stay positive. You may consult with folks. Here's the sexual relationships one again. So I wonder if this is even showing up on the camera. No, it is, barely. Is it in reverse if you ever see it on the camera? Like it looks like it's flipped. You know? Like it looks like it's written backwards. Like if I try to read it, it says, yeah. It's like a selfie picture that wasn't fixed. You know what I mean? Okay. Any questions on those? Hello. How are y'all? Were you guys able to see the sign? It was really hot in that room. So we decided this room has better air conditioning and I'd like to stay. So anybody else over there just hanging out, waiting for class? I guess we could live stream the class if that if you like. Hello, how are you? This room feels better. You guys notice the difference?
Yeah.
Or am I just making things up? I was sweating bullets in there and it was locked until about 9:31. So we were sitting in here and I'm like, I don't think anybody's using this room. We were just going over the code of ethics for the paper this week. Any questions you guys had on it to make sure you get all your questions answered, if you have any. Any questions? No? That's good. That's like, it's really only a few pages. So it's 3 to 4 pages. You're covering, we're going over section 1 point whatever up top is about like duties to your clients. Section 2 is duties to your colleagues. Here's the unethical one. We were saying you don't need to get into a beef with colleagues, like saying, yeah, I really think they're a piece of crap. You don't want to write that in your notes because your notes and even your text messages and your emails are all able to be seen and searched by everyone nowadays. I'm sure you guys have noticed that before. Like if you like write something on social media, you're talking crap about somebody else finds it over there. So it's just better not to put, you can think it, but just don't put it in writing. And it's the same with like social workers. If you got a beef with them or here's incompetence. So social workers who have direct knowledge of a social work colleague's incompetence should consult with that colleague when feasible and assist that colleague in taking remedial action. So you really want to help them instead of saying like, yeah, they suck, they didn't pay attention in class and they don't know what they're talking about. You want to try to get them to a training that they might need. So social workers who believe that social work colleague is incompetent and has not taken adequate steps to address the incompetence. Hello, how are you?
I'm good.
Good. That door was locked until 9:31, and then we were sitting in here, and it feels so fresh that I decided we're just camping out in here today. It really feels like the air conditioning actually works in here today. So yeah, for paper this week, you guys pick some of these that look like they make sense and would be easy for you, and then another one that would be hard for you. We were saying if it's an opinion about a client or a colleague, no need to write that in the client's notes. Hello. How are you? But if it is something unethical that they're doing, this is where you might have a duty to report. So, unethical conduct of colleagues. It says social workers should take adequate measures to discourage, prevent, expose, and correct unethical conduct of colleagues, including conduct using technology. So, the example I have of this is we used to work with a guy who said he would go see all his clients and he would go do home visits, and you have to see 4 or 5 a day. He was lying about seeing those clients, but he would still write a note and then bill for it. He would like charge Medicare, Medicaid, or um, the insurance company. So that is a case where it's fraud and it does have to be reported. So if it's like an opinion like I don't like him because he goes out to party at this place Fridays, that's one thing. That doesn't need to be talked about. But if it's unethical, illegal fraud, that's kind of where we have a duty to report. It says social workers should be knowledgeable about established policies and procedures for handling concerns about colleagues' unethical behavior. And again, if you search social workers in Ohio and their license that are revoked, they show you the list of things that they do. So these are all the things. The key is just avoid doing those things that they show. And it's all this code of ethics. These are the things where you get in trouble. And if you follow and be a good ethical social worker, you'll be okay. You should be familiar with national, state, and local procedures for handling ethics complaints. These include policies and procedures created by the NASW. So this is the NASW Code of Ethics, licensing and regulatory boards, employers, agencies, and other professional organizations. So some of them even have it. If you're a social worker at Lighthouse and you meet a social worker at Lighthouse and y'all want to get married, that's fine, but one of you should go work somewhere else. So some of them have that policy. Some of them don't. They're like, oh, you guys met here. You want to get married? Cool. No big deal. Go ahead, get married. But you just make sure to read your agency's handbook. It'll say like no commingling with colleagues. And actually, if I remember, the NASW may have a code about that themselves. In the teaching profession, they don't have that so much. Oh yeah, I got an email or PowerPoint, which is about ethics. So any questions about any of these ethics? Anyone you guys see that would be hard or like it challenges you? Sometimes it is hard if you meet somebody and you really vibe with them and now you got to quit your job to like actually date them. You know what I mean? Like, because it's like, dude, we work at the same place, but that's where it can be slightly unethical. Let's see if I can send this email to this computer. Oh, what world have we come to? How are you guys on your dormitory fronts? Like living in the dorms? Everything okay? No. Not that I want to like throw out anything that's gossipy, but is it like what Central State could be doing better, like heating, cooling, food, or just like roommates that don't want to be here and want to party all the time?
I feel like the school in general could do better.
Right. Do they have a way you guys can report that?
If they did, they probably wouldn't listen.
Really? So is this your first semester too?
Yeah.
So then in terms of that, what are the things that are like, is it cleaning? Is it noise?
Cleaning,
Heating, cooling?
there's items that are broken. I don't agree with the dining hall rules. You can't bring food out of the dining hall.
Yeah, what's up with that? Why do they do that?
You can only eat at a certain time. If you don't make it in time, it's closed.
Hmm.
There's a lot of things wrong.
Can't you bring packaged stuff out, like if they have chips? Or we used to always like wrap it in a napkin and put it into our backpack. But do they have police that like tackle you if you bring it out? Like for real?
One of the men had got on me before. I brought a cup of ice cream out. Thought I was taking food.
Is there anywhere to eat outside in the cafeteria? Like a porch? Because sometimes it's nice to eat outside.
Patios outside.
Really? But you just can't really bring it. Because I know I bought a set, like, I don't belong to the cafeteria, so I have to, like, buy a salad. They weigh it. They charge me. Is that what they make you do? Like, you have to pay for it to leave with it?
And yeah, but not a
Okay, right. Yeah. And then some of the dorms are kind of some of them are new, right? And some of them are like really, really old. And I'm sure they put freshmen into one of the oldest of all the dorms. Right? You got to like earn your stripes as you go on up the line, which that's hard. I mean, we had these old dorms that were like, we used to be able to smoke in our dorms. I don't know what year that stopped, but they had ashtrays for us and like, it was hilarious. The ashtray would get so filled up with cigarette butts it would catch on fire. That's when they got mad. But as long as you put out your cigarette, they're like, yay, no big deal. When my dad went to high school where they had a smoking room. So that was in high school in 1963. So that's how it's changed. I was in high school in 92. We didn't have a smoking room, but we did have a smoker's dorm in 1996. I don't think you can smoke anywhere. And now the age has changed again, right? Like it's not 18. If you choose to smoke, obviously I'm not advocating. I've quit and it's been a long, hard, I chew these toothpicks all the time. If you ever see me with a toothpick, it's because I smoked for 10 years and probably almost killed myself with it. But, you know, you live and you learn. So any questions? Here's part 3. And it's about your, yeah.
So I know how I've been, but so when I look back at the video, it's like something is missing in a way. So when I look back at the other videos, it's like all you have to do is come to this website. So I didn't know what to write now, what not to write now. What it was, that was my exact target. So today, can you say what's the exact target, when it's due, and everything I need to do for it so I can do it today?
Okay, so you're talking about for this paper from
Yeah.
on D, you have access to D2L, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then you would go into intro. And I only ever, to keep it simple for you guys, I post in announcements, wherever that is. It's probably, oh, there it is. So I post an announcement so you can get that. And then for like homework, I just do assignments and discussions. We're not going to have quizzes. I can give you the quizzes with questions and answers if you really want them for like to practice for the licensure exam. But every like 10 to 12 days, we'll have a social work paper. That's the first one. Here's the values paper. I've kept them open as some people are doing it remotely and they got started late. Here's the values paper. Your instructions for it, like specifically, this isn't due until Thursday, but here it says review the NASW Code of Ethics, and you're going to compare and contrast your personal values with the values contained in the code. That was the ethics code that we were going through. You'll critically evaluate your own values and thoughtfully give examples of areas of compatibility with your own values, as well as areas of incompatibility, something you think that will be hard for you to do. My most frequent example is somebody hates that there's no physical touch because they might want to give a client a hug if they're crying after telling a tough story. Paper's only a few pages. You can do 4, which again is an APA title page, 3 pages of content, and then references is at the end. So it would look like 5 pages, but it's 3 pages of content. Critical analysis with use of the Lowenberg and Dolgoff example of the ethical principles. So you can search that, or the Reamer social work values of hierarchy. What these do is help you understand the ethical principles and why we have them, and you can cite them. They can be one of your references. And they're a decision making model. So sometimes they'll have like a decision tree, like is this right or wrong? Yes or no? Is this, like help you make that ethical decision in the end. Then explain your process, you will apply to address an ethical situation. So give an ethical situation, something that could come up. And it could be as simple as like what I said, you meet somebody you're dating in your workforce, and now you either got to keep it secret from the staff or you got to go work somewhere else. What do you do? How can you best serve your clients? And then recommend a solution to any ethical dilemma examples. So hopefully that helps break it down for you. There's also a discussion. So if you go into here, there would be a discussion on there. That's weird. Those, for some reason, don't come up like in your calendar or whatever, but you have to actually go into discussions and then talk. And there's the September one. So, and then talk to each other. So it's like the online class participation. So those don't pop up as easily. But again, we do have people online doing this, so it's a way to get them to participate. And that's really all we're doing here is papers every 10 to 12 days and a discussion every 12 to 14 days. Attendance, so we have the video, we're a hybrid class. I would always recommend in person. We could all get COVID. Hello. How are you? Good. And then, so the next paper would be more like not due until September 29th or 30th, pretty much. So you'll have one due this week and a discussion, just like we had a discussion due 2 weeks ago and a paper due 2 weeks ago. And then we'll have another one, and at the end. I keep them open because, like I said, people are still being added to the class. So it's fine if you go in there and do those now. That's fine. It doesn't pop up for you, so that I know that we're all learning D2L, so that's why I've been flexible with it. You can get in there now, and I'll keep it open. Any other questions? See if we have the. Oh boy! If you're not awake, you're going to be awake now.
In 1932, the medical community.
We've already watched that one. There was some about. Have you guys? This is more for human behavior in the social environment, but have you guys seen any of this stuff about, like, we think babies don't react or remember stuff at a super young age when they're like 1 and 2. Like most of us, when's your all's youngest memory? Most of us don't remember stuff until a certain age. What's your all's youngest or first memory? Yeah.
I can't remember back to
Preschool? So is that 3 or 4 or 5, or is that okay? Yeah. Anybody else?
I want to say like
4. I have one early, but it's because it was traumatizing for me. My parents took away my pacifier. Yeah.
I remember my first birthday.
What? How old were you then? 1. Oh, dang. What'd you remember?
I remember yelling at Chucky back.
Chuck E. Cheese? Chucky the doll or Chuck E. Cheese?
Chuck E. Cheese.
Okay. Not Chucky the nightmare doll with the knife. Like, okay.
So, he used to scare me.
Right. So it was
I remember being little, hitting him. And
like a traumatic.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So
like a whole tantrum. So I can't go back to one chicken.
So you still don't go there. You might end up tackling him and getting arrested for assault or something. Like, okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, my parents said they gave my pacifier to the raccoons at the Cincinnati Zoo. And I guess I cried for because they wanted me to stop. And that might have shown for a while I had an oral fixation why I smoked cigarettes for 10 years too. So sometimes in your youth, they can tell about your development. So this is they did an experiment. It's kind of messed up, and it's called still face. I know some of you have seen this with moms. And so the reason this is pertinent, if there is alcoholism or addiction, say the mom nods off or you pass out from drinking too much and the baby like is hungry, it can affect them. You would think it would affect them negatively. So they also did this experiment with dads. So this is one where
Well, that shouldn't be.
What we've learned over the years is that babies are much more capable than we initially imagined, but they're also much more vulnerable.
So I usually think the babies just like you can leave them be and let them just like do their own thing, but they do need that interaction. You know what I mean? Like I guess research is showing they're more vulnerable than we know. And this becomes the theme of trauma. So I do a lot of research on trauma and what's called adverse childhood experiences and ways we can help develop our brain better. So if you do have a trauma, it's not going to be the end of the world, but it is recoverable, but it does affect you like throughout your life in some cases.
Still faces. We get to see both in a very short period.
So the baby's trying to get you to respond.
See the baby and playing together and their routines, there are things that they know about each other and things that they do together, and it's fun. And then we ask the dad to turn away. And when he turns back, to keep his face completely still and not respond to the baby. And the results are almost immediate and they're devastating. The baby looks to the dad and tries to get the dad to get back into those things. Hey, we were just playing just a minute ago, weren't we? You were having fun, what's going on? And then the baby starts to get frustrated when that doesn't work. So she'll have to look away, and look around the room and find something else, and then look back and say, now can we play? And within 3 minutes, the baby has really dissolved.
So even nowadays, our distractions of our phone all the time. You would be surprised, but the baby knows. You're texting. You're like doing stuff. You're trying to interact with friends, like your natural communication. You know what I mean? Like we want to be on top of the news. We want to be on top of the gossip, whatever it is. The baby knows right away. Like even when I'm responding to a text, I have a 1-year-old and a 3-month-old. They flip the F out. Like they know. And it's tough because it does take a bit of that sacrifice to put it down or to not have hello, did I steal your room?
Yes.
What time do you have class?
No.
Okay, we'll go to our room then. All right, let's move. Are you guys cooled off adequately enough? Cool. Oh, this room feels so good. We were locked out of our room this morning, so I started in there, but I can finish over here. They unlocked it. Have a good one.
All right.
Are you at 10?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So now we get to, does it feel hotter in here? I'm a big baby when it comes to air conditioning, so I'm not a good one to ask. If it's hot, I freak out. Do you guys prefer to have it hot or cold? Would you? I'm one where like I'll set it to 65 year round if I can. Like I'll set the heat to 65. My wife is like, oh hell no. I'll set the air conditioning to 65. So any questions? Could you guys see that about the baby?
Have you tried to choke him?
My friend has done it. I don't have the heart to do it. I think it's messed up. My friend's like messed up like that. He's like, I'm gonna do still face experiment with my kid. I'm like, dude, you're messed up. And his kid started freaking out. I'm like, why would you do that to him? Because they start crying and crap. And like, some of the key is to keep them to shut up. So you want to be nice. You know what I mean? Like you don't want to baby them so much that they're forever a child. Like my wife is saying. What was it this morning? Oh yeah, she wants to be held all the time while we're making bottles, and now she's like 25 pounds. So you're holding them every weekend. I'm home and like doing everything with her. And by Monday, my arm is out like this. I used to wonder why this arm was always sore. I'm like, what the heck? This was last year. I didn't even think about it because I'm holding her like this. Now she's 25 pounds. So you're like trying to make a bottle like this arm, and then you're holding them, and eventually I've resorted to like sitting on the floor for real. Because they're down here, so they start crying. I'll like sit on the floor with her. I'm like, all right, I'm done. I'm sitting on the floor. And then she'll stop crying if I sit on the floor. I can't do that still face experiment. My friend did it, and he's kind of messed up in the head, so I could see him doing stuff like that. He's like, yeah, I'm going to do the still face experiment with my kid. And it happens more than, so not just like texting or watching your favorite TV show, like you want to have your own downtime, which is also fine and natural. But say if you drink too much and you pass out, they know. And even worse, if they were hungry and you had to feed them and you're passed out, or with our heroin epidemic, people shooting up heroin and passing out, or like nodding off for 5 hours at a time, it's causing detrimental effects. And so, well, you can see how these kids start losing it. And then you want to get pissed, like, shut up. And that just makes it worse. You know what I mean? So it's like we have to find different ways to interact.
She is trying to get out of the chair. She is uncomfortable. She's reaching out to dad, crying. And then we ask the dad to turn away again. And when he turns back, to go back to being regular dad. And it's a joyous reunion. They get back into their routines, the things that they do together, the things that they were just doing 3 minutes before. And the baby settles down and gets back to the comfort zone that she's developed with the dad. What we see in the still face experiment is how able the child is to initiate and be part of the relationship between the father and the child, but also how much she depends on that relationship in order to keep an even keel. And when she's grounded and comfortable, she can explore the world. She can meet new people. She can try new things, and she's got that safe base that she can always rely on. And there's a trust level there. We can only begin to imagine what it's like for babies whose life is like that 3 minutes all of the time. And they don't get that responsiveness, and they don't get any help getting back to an even keel. And the results can be very tragic. They can have trouble trusting people. They can have trouble relating to people. And they can have trouble being calm enough so that they can explore the world and take part in the world.
So that's key research points too that like carry with us throughout our adulthood. He's saying even as a child, you begin having trouble trusting that your needs will be met. If your mom or dad's passed out from alcohol or heroin, you're hungry and you're like worried about being fed or having trouble connecting in different ways or staying calm enough long enough to go out in the world and not get in an argument or a fight. So that's
So
kind
we
of
know that those initial relationships that initial responsiveness and interaction between the father and the baby are keys to the baby's success as a child and as an adult.
So that's some of the stuff as we get into children and adolescents. The research behind this, and I know this is more for human behavior in the social environment, but this was the initial video. Well, let's see if PowerPoint 5 came in the first place. Okay, so we're doing the ethics paper this week. It just so happens that the PowerPoint this week is about ethics, which we were going over. So they have the values, social workers' values, and their belief systems defined. So the ethics are concerned with what is right. They're expressed as standards of conduct. Microethics are like in your agency, direct practice. If you work at a homeless shelter, it would be there. Macroethics are like guides and social policy. So like the NASW Code of Ethics has the macroethics. There's a value base of social work. So we've shifted more from morality of individuals, clients, to moral imperatives of social work profession, like how we should work with folks. And some of this stuff you guys can put in your paper. You can cite the book here and quote this stuff for your paper. So the value base of social work, our values reflect beliefs about the nature of humankind, change, social justice is a big one, and then intrinsic dignity and worth of humans. So you guys already saw that in the Tuskegee experiments, the sterilization experiments, and a few others. There was an intro to this video that touches on the sterilization that I also wanted to show you. And I don't know if it's I hate commercials. They're always too loud. So here we go.
Hey Kim, what's on your radar this morning?
Well, last week, when Joe Biden unveiled his vaccine mandates for all federal employees and businesses with over 100 employees, he uttered a truth that was really difficult for many of us to hear.
This is not about freedom or personal choice. It's about protecting yourself and those around you, the people you work with, the people you care about, the people you love. My job as president is to protect all Americans. So tonight, I'm announcing that the Department of Labor is developing an emergency rule to require all employers with 100 or more employees that together employ over 80 million workers to ensure their workforces are fully vaccinated.
So he says right there, it's not about your freedom. It's necessary to give up your bodily freedom for the greater good, he says. Now, we're all about wanting to protect our loved ones and even ourselves, really. But when the government tells us we need to give up our bodily freedom, with the government's track record, should we automatically believe them? The U.S. government has never been very good at protecting the rights of an individual to control what happens to their own body. There is a long, sordid history. Just going back to the very beginning of our nation, the most egregious control over another person was, of course, slavery. The state wasn't short of any excuses. They claimed slaves were being cared for, clothed, fed, given religion. They claimed they were better off than poor workers in northern factories. And of course, there was the claim that it was a matter of national security because we needed cheap goods. We couldn't rely on the British or any other foreign nation. And the state has been controlling what we can ingest with prohibition on alcohol and nowadays marijuana. We've been told it's for our own good to keep us from becoming addicts. And they would also claim that it isn't our right to be inebriated in public places. Who we can love has been regulated by the state. Interracial and gay marriage has been illegal at times in our nation's history. The excuse is always...
Yeah, did you guys know that interracial marriage was illegal within the last 50 years? For real. I know that sounds messed up because we're like used to it, but it was illegal in 1969. So that blew my mind. Like looking at, it's called the state of Virginia versus Loving. I think their last name is Loving versus the state of Virginia was the case.
Always banned that it's against nature, that genes shouldn't mix, or that it will corrupt the youth. People actually argued that being gay was contagious. Now, of course, a woman's right to choose has long also been under attack and still is today. Contraception was even once illegal. And of course, abortion is currently becoming less accessible in southern states. And the excuse is always to preserve life, or in the case of contraception, to not interfere in God's plan. Now, ironically, sterilization of young women was popular in the early 1900s and even up until the 70s. And talk about interfering with God's creations. Anyone who was institutionalized or considered less than in society could undergo forced sterilization. And the justification was to protect them from having children they couldn't care for and to protect society from people breeding who shouldn't be breeding. This eugenics movement lasted for decades and mostly affected poor women of color. In fact, the 1927 SCOTUS ruling that allowed for forced sterilization was particularly egregious. In Buck versus Bell, Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes wrote in his opinion, quote, "Society can prevent those who are manifestly unfit from continuing their kind. The principle that sustains compulsory vaccination is broad enough to cover cutting the fallopian tubes." Jacobson versus Massachusetts. "3 generations of imbeciles are enough," he wrote. So he cited Jacobson versus Massachusetts, the Supreme Court ruling in 1905 that found mandatory vaccinations were not in violation of the Constitution. That case involved a man named Henning Jacobson who refused the vaccine, claiming that he and his son had bad reactions in the past. As a result, he was charged $5, which was the penalty in Massachusetts for not complying. Now, he took the case to court and he lost. The court ruled public health officials could do whatever they felt necessary to protect the public, which apparently later forced sterilization was considered part of that protection. And Jacobson versus Massachusetts is often being cited right now as a justification for why current vaccine mandates can hold. But we really need to put this ruling into context of the time period. I mean, we're talking about a time when women could not vote, contraception and interracial marriage were crimes, Jim Crow laws were in effect. Also at the same time, activists were trying for labor and wage reforms unsuccessfully. SCOTUS during this time was striking down laws that guaranteed minimum wage for women. They failed to uphold a law to prevent employers from demanding 60-hour work weeks, and they struck down a federal law regulating child labor. So it really, was it really the early, it was really clear in the early 1900s, and really you could from the founding of the nation and even to today, that a free country has always been about a free enterprise, not really about a free people. And when you look at all of these past and current attempts to control.
So she is basically showing the ethics that go into a lot of these decisions. The one was the forced sterilization. The interracial marriages, I can't believe it wasn't overturned until 1969. That was literally like 52 years ago. And then the forced sterilizations and the ethics. She's a good libertarian she gives good arguments if you want to look it up, Kim Iverson, to give some of the details of the ethics that go in. So again, in social work, we focus on the nature of humankind, change and social justice, and then the intrinsic dignity and worth of humans. So you'll see that in the Code of Ethics as you're writing about this for the assignment. So here's some of the values, the value context. So we have a value system of society. We have our values of the social work profession. We have the value of your agency that you're working for. So the agency is, like I work for Lighthouse Youth Services. You can work for Ohio Mentor. They have their own code of ethics. Then you have the value of the client system. So your clients may come in with their own ethics. And as a social worker, we have to balance all of these. And you even have your own personal ethics at the bottom. And also evaluating personal and social problems. So this is again showing kind of this same deal where you'll have your social worker, you have the client system, the problem, the agency context where they come for help, and then the political context. So a lot of systems that you have to balance as a social worker. You have to know a lot of these different systems. So the purpose of the Code of Ethics is to prescribe the expectations for professional conduct. It helps you guys decide your decision making. So it doesn't tell you what to do, but it tells you how to come to that final decision. It also helps provide a standard for assessing competence and then regulates professional behavior. One of the biggest is like no relationships with clients. Some of them do recommend no relationships with a coworker because that could affect how you serve your clients. And then finally, evaluate professional performance. So the NASW Code of Ethics, it defines the ethical responsibility to all three of these folks. You'll see in section 1 it's to clients, and to section 2 it's to colleagues, and then section 3 it's in practice settings. And that's the one we were just starting to get into. So in practice settings, that's 3. We were finishing up with 2 to your coworkers, and then here's the practice setting. All of you will have a supervisor. All of us still have, like, I am the supervisor, but I still have a supervisor. And even if you're a supervisor of the supervisor, you answer to the code, or like the board. There's also your continuing education. Did you know you have to, after you graduate, if you get a license, you still have to do continuing education units? Seems like a pain in the ass, but they're actually kind of fun, as the agency will pay for them and usually feed you. Like, they'll give you a whole day of training for 8 hours. They pay you, some. It is, right. And you have to do 15 of those hours every year. I guess it's 30 every 2 years, because you renew your license every 2 years. So you do 15 a year, which isn't a ton. That's like 1.5 every month, 1.5 hours. So usually in like June, you'll do 8, and then December, you'll do 8. You'll take like a Friday. They bring in donuts or healthy breakfast and feed you. I like when they bring in donuts, but sometimes they'll have yogurt and freaking fruit, and you get paid for it. Also, your supervisor will give you a performance evaluation. That seems scary, but it's actually a good thing, because you know how you can make yourself better. You know what I mean? Like, they're not going to just be like, all right, you suck, you're fired. That's not how it works. Usually they're like, here's how you can like write your notes better. Here's how you can see those 4 hours of clients every day more efficiently, just like scheduling better. There's rules on the client records. We were saying earlier that all the clients can ask for your notes. So you want to write your notes in a way that it's not like, I think this client is a piece of crap. If you think that could be normal, but just don't write it in your notes, because the clients are going to get it, or it could be called into court. And it's just better to say, like, I've recommended the client quit smoking crack daily and drinking 40 before work so he could keep his job. And just like observations of the clients that you might see. Like, those are better than like, I think he's a piece of crap or is a bad, person and beats his wife or something. Billing, I was saying how I had a social worker I worked with that was turned in because he was fraudulently billing. He was saying he went to go see 3 clients at their houses, and he never did. He was at home on Facebook, texting girls and drinking 40s and smoking joints. So that he got turned in, like, he was lying about his billing. So like, if you bill for a service, make sure it's accurate and you do it. And you were there from, like, it says 10:19 until 10:59. It's just best to be exact. There's no reason to fraudulently bill. We do have a duty to report fraud, and if like there's stuff going on. Sometimes you'll have to transfer a client. Like, if it's not your specialty area, you may want to give a sex offender client that you have. Say you're an addictions recovery professional, and you had somebody that has a sex offense. You want them to get a help from a sex offender because that's not your specialty area, or you don't want to do that type of work. So we refer or transfer them to other social workers that are better at that work. There's the continuing education and commitments to employers. So there's a lot of things you can dip into here for your paper. If you just pick a few that look easy and a few that you vibe with, and something that looks hard, something that, we are challenged to be our best and do our best. And it looks long, but it's all very logical. Like, it kind of flows how we should act as a professional and be professional. And you can download a copy and print it out if you wanted to. I can. Let's see if this will let me copy it. Copy. And then, are you guys one because you're morning time? Or are you number 2 because it's afternoon? I think you're 1. Sometimes I mix up your classes and we're going through the same exact stuff. Do these actually get to you guys well, or are these like,
Some things, yes.
so some of them don't?
No, I don't get them.
Okay. Does it come in an email or does it just like,
They pop up in my notifications.
okay,
But your discussion posts and your other assignments stuff, with your videos, those two.
right. I think the assignments only show up on the calendars. The videos I try to send to you guys as a reminder if you've already been in class, you don't have to watch it. You know what I mean? But it's a way for people that are doing all online. Does this have a paste anywhere? It might not. There it is. Code of ethics. And publish. Well, you're right. The discussions are the one you have to actively seek out yourself. So I know who's really digging into the class and finding stuff. Trying to find them. I think you might need to do it from a computer too. That's even more. So you would have to go into course activities. Again, I don't do quizzes. I can certainly give you guys stuff like that if you like. If you're a person who really likes quizzes, I can give you quizzes. So we're all going to have to take one to get the licensure, and that's why I'll give you quizzes with answers and explanations. So questions, answers, explanations. That way you know, and it's the content of the material we're teaching here. So say for some reason you're texting all class and not paying attention, you got to go through a quiz and get answers and explanations to pass the licensure exam. So that when you're a senior, you could take your second semester. So you can take the licensure exam January of your senior year, which is basically now for you guys only like 3 years away almost. Or is that, hold on, sophomore, junior, senior. Yes, 3 years away. So you'd be studying for the test right now. If you want a license, that's how you make the big money. You can practice, you can work in the field without a license, but you get paid a lot more when you have a license.
So even if I want to go into my bachelor's, I still have that license.
Even let's say it one more time.
My bachelor's in social work, I still need to get the license.
You'll get paid like 50% more. So you can work certainly without a license. You could get another license. Like you can get, there's the license I mentioned that is to get a chemical dependency counselor assistantship. You only need 2 years of education for that. So you could just take that test. It's actually, that might not even be a test. It just shows you had training in the addiction recovery materials. That's another license. Social work license pays you the most. And the independent social work license is like, that's when you get big money and can work for the VA. Anybody here want to work for the VA? You ever heard that? It's like the best paying job in social work? Because it is. It's like a hospital job and a government type of job. We're interviewing somebody Thursday for the director position for our program. She works for the VA. And you make big money at the VA. It's like, sometimes I think they creep up 6 figures, like for real. So that's exciting because I'm used to like pennies on the dollar. That's what they pay us. We can really almost finish this today. So any questions about the code of ethics, what it covers as a professional to the social work profession, to the broader society? This is your next paper, so that won't be due till the last day of this month, more than likely. International Federation of Social Work. Because that's all I've got for real. I may call it a day. This room's too hot for me, unfortunately. I'll stay around for questions, but we can do these last few slides on Thursday.
You make this attended.
I have it right here. Oh God. Oh, I was carrying that baby all weekend. She's getting fat, man. My back's running out. You guys got any nieces or nephews?
Yeah.
And they're like crazy all day, every day? You're like, ah! Isn't that crazy though, how quickly they get set off within like 3 minutes? They're like nuts. If you ignore them for 60 seconds, they start losing their crap. That could be the attendance.
Oh, okay, I was just saying something.
I know, it looks weird, but that is all I have for today. We're running out of money and funding for the resources. What were you saying about the dorms, though? Some of the other challenges in the dorms? They cool them enough for you guys?
You control your own air conditioning.
Oh, you do?
But they break some.
No, not for all buildings.
Okay.
Sometimes they break off.
They do break?
Yeah,
That
then they
stinks.
fix it.
And maintenance does not care.
you
So-
just not-
It's better if it's too cool, then you can sleep with a bunch of like blankets, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But if it's too hot, there's not much you can do. In the winter, you can open your window, but that's. When I lived in buildings like that in Cincinnati, that was our thermostat. We had to open the window and let it just go outside. And it seemed so wasteful. Oh, there's a question on here. Okay. I guess the view is not flipped. Are we defending conducts in the paper? No, just give examples of the code of ethics. Stuff that looks easy for you and stuff that guides.